Uam, 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 Uam Shri Ganeshaya Nmaha, Uam Shri Ganeshaya Nmaha, Uam Shri Ganeshaya Nmaha, Aum Maha Shivaya, Aum Maha Shivaya, Aum Maha Shivaya. Shiv MahaPuran. The Beginning. It discusses the origin of the universe, which it traces to Shiva, the eternal God who, though devoid of attributes, has still an inherent energy which manifests itself in the form of three principles, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, personified as the three deities Vishnu, Brahma and Rudra. The three have their respective energies called Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali, in collaboration with whom they create, maintain, and dissolve the universe. The work of creation is entrusted to Brahma, who creates the cosmic egg consisting of 24 principles. The cosmic egg is insentient at first, but when Vishnu pervades it, it goes in motion. Then different kinds of creation are evolved out of it. The mind-born sons of Brahma refuse to obey the Creator and remain celibate. Then out of his body Brahma produced 11 sons, Marishi from the eyes, Baitarga from the heart, Angaras from the head, Pulaha, Pulastya, Vasistha, Krata from his breath, Atri from his ears, Narada from his lap, and Kardama from his shadow. When still the creation made no progress, Brahma divided himself into two, one half in the form of a woman and the other half in the form of a man. In that half form of a woman he created a couple, Swayambhava Manu and Satarupa, who complied with the wishes of the Creator and began the work of creation. After all, the creation of the universe is not a permanent feature, for all creations end in dissolutions, which in turn give place to recreation. As the Purans relate, a creation lasts for a day of Brahma equal to the age of 14 Manvantaras. At the end of each Manvantara, there occurs a dissolution. Thus a day of Brahma contains 14 dissolutions. But these are partial dissolutions. At the end of 14 Manvantaras, equal to a day of Brahma that lasts for a kalpa, there occurs a great dissolution. Thus during the life of the Creator several creations and dissolutions take place. There occurs a complete dissolution when the Creator has completed his lifetime. The elements are dissolved and merged into the body of the Creator. The Creator takes rest for some time and then starts the process of recreating the universe. Thus we have a series of dissolutions and recreations succeeding each other. The description of the ages of Manus, Manvantaras, is another characteristic of a Mahapurana. Shiva Purana mentions 14 Manas by name. They are Swayambhava, Svarasisa, Uttama, Tamasa, Ravata, Kaksusa, Vaivasvata, Savarni, Rasaya, Brahma Savarni, Dharma Savarni, Rudra Savarni, Deva Savarni, Indra Savarni. Each Manvantara comprises 43,200 human years, or 1/14th day of Brahma. The 14 Manvantaras make up one day of Brahma. Each of the 14 Manvantaras is presided over by its own gods, seers, and kings. This scheme of creation and dissolution repeats itself from one age of Manu to another and is described in all the Mahapuranas. The Suttas were the custodians of genealogical records which they learned by rote and which they recited at sessional sacrifices in exchange for the gifts they obtained from their patrons. But at the course of oral transmission from one generation to another some interpolations entered in these records. There were traditional variations too, for different versions existed in different families of the Suttas. When the records were incorporated in the Puranas, the interpolations and the traditional variations also settled therein. This explains the difference that exists in the genealogical records of the Puranas. Shiva Purana proceeds with the statement of genealogies and deeds of glorious monarchs. But the statements are meager, for Shiva Purana is not interested in furnishing details. Still, in regard to the solar dynasty of Ayodhya, it supplies a detailed information. Shiva Purana is interested in the records of the solar dynasty of Ayodhya, and as such it recounts the deeds of some monarchs of that house. Of these, Kuvalasvathundhumara, Satyavrata Trisanku, and Sagara figure prominently. The accounts of Vikuksi Susuta, Bhagarata, Nisada, Hiranyanabha and others occupy a secondary place. The Purana conceives Shiva as the eternal principle, the supreme God, the cosmic soul, the support of all existence. But the ignorant aspirant bound in the meshes of illusion goes in quest for knowledge and imagines that his Lord has a personal form possessed of attributes distinct from his self, who in moments of distress responds to his prayers and bestows grace. The devotee, then aspires for spiritual enlightenment and takes to ritual for self-purification. Shiva Purana enjoins several rites of worship and acts of homage, comprising a series of physical and spiritual practices in accompaniment with the tantra, yantra, and mantra appliances. He starts with the threefold devotion, viz. Hearing, glorifying and deliberating the attributes of God. Rudrasamhita mentions 8 means for attaining mental concentration and spiritual enlightenment. Shiva Purana Mahatmyam Chapter 1, Greatness of Shiva Purana. Saunaka said Saunaka was the chief of the sages at the great sacrifice in Namasa forest, to whom the Mahabharata and the Puranas were recited by the Sutta in the region of Adizamakursna. O Sutta of great intellect, O my Lord, the knower of all philosophical principles, please narrate to me the essence of the Puranas in detail. How do good conduct, good devotion, and power of discrimination flourish? How are base feelings dispelled by good men? In this terrible Kali age all living beings have almost become demoniac in character. What is the effective mode of remedying the same? Now tell me about the greatest means to achieve the most perfect will, the holiest of the holy modes. What is that, the practice of which particularly purifies the soul? What is that which enables a man of unsullied mind to attain Shiva? Sutta said, O foremost among sages, you are blessed indeed as you are desirous of hearing. Hence I shall ponder over the greatest of the sacred lore intelligently and tell you. O dear, listen to that divine panacea evolved out of all religious tenets, heightening true devotion and conducive to the pleasure of Shiva. It is destructive of the great fear of the python of Kala, death. O sage, it is the noble Shiva Purana formerly narrated by Shiva himself. For the benefit of the people in the age of Kali, the sage Vyasa has abridged it out of great respect for the sage Sanat Kumara on being instructed by him. O sage, there is nothing other than Shiva Purana for the purification of the mind, especially of the people of the Kali age. It is only the intelligent and the highly fortunate man who has accumulated great merits in his previous birth who will be drawn towards it. This Shiva Purana is the greatest and the noblest of the sacred lore. It is the form of Shiva and as such is to be served and realized in this world. By reading this and listening to it the good man becomes very pious. By all means he instantly attains Shiva's region. Hence every endeavor of mine to read this is desirable. Loving care to listen to it yields all desired results. By listening to this Purana of Shiva, a man becomes sinless. After enjoying all extensive worldly pleasures he will attain the region of Shiva. Merely by listening to the story of Shiva a man secures that merit which results from the performance of Rajaswaya and 100 Agni stomas. O sage, those who listen to Shiva Purana, the noblest of sacred lore, cease to be mere human beings. They must be undoubtedly considered as manifestations of Rudra, a form of Shiva. Sages consider the dust in the feet of those who habitually listen to that Purana and recite it, on a par with holy centers. May those who wish to attain the seat of salvation, listen always to the holy Shiva Purana with great devotion. O noblest among sages, if he is unable to listen to it always, let him hear it for a short while every day with his mind fully controlled. If anyone is unable to listen to it every day, O sage, let him listen to Shiva Purana in the holy months. Those who listen to that Purana even for a muhurta, 48 minutes, half that period, 1/4 of that period, or even for a moment will not suffer from mishaps. O Lord of sages, the man who listens to that Purana crosses the ocean of worldly existence after burning the great forest of karma, binding actions. O sage, the merit that accrues from all gifts and all sacrifices becomes stabilized after listening to Shiva Purana. Particularly in the age of Kali there is no greater virtue conducive to the achievement of liberation by means, O sage, than listening to Shiva Purana. There is no doubt in this that, listening to the Purana and reciting the names of Shiva is as efficacious as the Kalpa tree in yielding one's desires. For the benefit of the evil-minded persons of the Kali age, bereft of virtuous conduct, Lord Shiva has produced the nectar in the form of Shiva Purana. A single man, the man who drinks nectar, becomes immortal and unaging. But the nectar of the divine story of Shiva, if drunk, makes the whole family immortal and unaging. The sanctifying story of Shiva Purana must always be resorted to, definitely so. Merely by listening to Shiva Purana, if such good results, what am I to say about the result when Shiva abides in the heart? He who reads the entire Shiva Purana without omitting any of the 7 Samhitas cab called Jivanmutta, a living liberated soul. O sage, the ignorant man is tossed about in the ocean of worldly existence till the excellent Shiva Purana reaches his ears. Of what avail is listening to many sacred texts and other confounding Puranas? The Shiva Purana alone loudly proclaims its readiness to grant salvation. The house where the discourse on this Shiva Purana is held becomes a holy center. It destroys the sins of the inmates of the house. O best of sages, a sinner is called a sinner till the moment he hears Shiva Purana with great devotion. He who constantly listens to Shiva Purana fully comprehending its meaning or simply reads it with devotion is undoubtedly a meritorious soul. Lord Mahesana, Shiva, is extremely pleased with the sensible man who listens to Shiva Purana when death is imminent. Lord Shiva accords him a seat in his own region. The holy Shiva Purana that accords the 4 aims of life must be heard and read with great devotion always. This Shiva Purana is the greatest resort of the knowers of Atman forever. It is the noblest object worthy of adoration of good men. It suppresses the 3 types of distresses, that is physical illness, extraneous attacks, and divine calamities. It accords happiness always, and it is very pleasing to all devas led by Brahma, Hari, and Esa. Blessed indeed is the story of Shiva Purana, the holiest of holy stories, a mere hearing of which qualifies even the greatest sinner for salvation. Devraja the base Brahmin, addicted to wine, enamored of a vile harlot, slayer of his own father, mother, and wife, and who out of greed for money had kidded many Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas and Sudras and others, became a liberated soul instantaneously on reaching that supreme loka. Saunaka said, O Sutta of great intellect, thou art extremely blessed and omniscient. By thy favor I am gratified to satiety again and again. My mind rejoices much on hearing this old anecdote. Please narrate another story equally increasing devotion to Shiva. Nowhere in the world are those who drink nectar honored with liberation. But in regard to the nectar of the story of Shiva it is different. When drunk, it straightway accords salvation. Thou art blessed, blessed indeed. Blessed, blessed is the story of Shiva on hearing which a man attains Shivaloka. In a certain temple a scholar of divine wisdom was conducting a discourse on the holy Shiva Purana story, some of which she happened to hear. The portion that fell into Chanchula's ears was the context in which it was said that the servants of Yama would introduce a red-hot iron. This narrative made by the Puranika to increase detachment, made the woman tremble with fear. Unknowingly a great sin that produces excessive distress has been committed by me for a fleeting glimpse of an evanescent pleasure, a criminal action. The intelligent Brahmin mercifully lifted up Chanchula, who had become disgusted with worldly affairs, and had fallen at his feet. That Brahmin then spoke, as follows. O Brahmin lady, fortunately you have realized at the proper time on hearing the story of Shiva Purana that is conducive to non-attachment. Do not be afraid. Seek refuge in Shiva. All sins perish instantaneously by Shiva's grace. It is by listening to the excellent story that your mind has now turned to the pure path of repentance and detachment towards worldly pleasures. The mental purity that one derives on hearing the story of Shiva Purana cannot be gained by any other means. As a mirror becomes free from dirt on being wiped with a cloth, so is the mind undoubtedly purified by listening to this story. Accompanied by Amba, Shiva stays in the minds of pure men. The sanctified soul thereupon attains the region of Shiva and Amba. Hence this story is the means of realizing the fourfold aim of life. It is for this that Mahadeva earnestly created this. Listening to the excellent story is the cause of beatitude for all men. Properly entertained, it dispels the ailment of worldly bondage. Your mind, as you listen to the excellent story of Shiva, the Supreme Soul, will become pure, and thereafter you will realize liberation. After saying this, that excellent Brahmin with his mind melting with pity ceased talking and turned his attention to the meditation on Shiva with purity of the soul. The wife of Benduga, called Chanchula, when thus addressed by the Brahmin, became delighted and her eyes brimmed with tears. O saintly one, I am about to fall into the ocean of hell. Save me. I am now faithfully eager to listen to the Purana. On hearing its excellent story I became detached from worldly pleasures. She wore barks of trees and had her hair matted. She smeared ashes over her body. She wore garlands of Rudraksa beads. Every day she took her ablutions in the sacred water. She regularly repeated Shiva's names. She regulated her speech and diet. She propitiated Lord Shiva in the manner advised by the preceptor. O Saunaka, thus for a long time, Chanchula continued her meditation on Lord Shiva. When the stipulated period was over, Chanchula in her practice of the threefold devotion cast off her body without any difficulty. The divine aerial chariot shining in brilliant colors, sent by Tripundra, Shiva, himself, accompanied by his attendants, arrived there quickly. She assumed a divine form. Her limbs were divine in their features. She assumed the form of Gauri with the crescent moon as her coronet and divine ornaments shining brilliantly. She saw the three-eyed Mahadeva, the Eternal, being served devotedly by Vishnu, Brahma, and other gods. He had the brilliance of 10 million suns and was reverently served by Ganesha, Brahmji, Nandasvarabhadreswara, and others. His neck had a blue hue, he had 5 faces, 3 eyes, the crescent moon as crest ornament, and his left side was apportioned to Gauri, who the brilliance of lightning. He was white in complexion like camphor and wore all ornaments. Besmeared with white ashes all over the body and clad in white cloth, he shone brilliantly. She joined her palms in reverence with great pleasure, love, and humility. In her great delight she shed tears of joy and had feelings of horripilation. Chanchula, the beloved wife of Benduga, thus attained a divine form and was blessed with divine pleasures and made a chaperone by Parvati. O celestial Girija, I do not know where my husband is at present, nor where he is to go. O benignant favorite of the distressed, please make such arrangements as would enable me to join him. O daughter, your wicked sinful husband Benduga, the foolish wretch enamored of prostitutes, has been to hell after his death. He underwent the various tortures of hell for many years and has now become a pisacha due to the residue of sins, in the Vindhya mountains. Even now that wicked fellow is undergoing various painful tortures. He, in the form of a pisacha, has only wind for his diet and is suffering from all sorts of miseries. Parvati said, if your husband were to hear the holy story of Shiva, he shall surmount the misery entirely and attain salvation. Lovingly, she sent for the Gandharva king Tumbaru, who used to sing songs of praise of Shiva, the daughter of Himalaya, and said thus to him: narrate the holy sanctifying tale of sacred Shiva Purana, that quells all sins, in front of him. Immediately after hearing the great story of Shiva Purana, his soul will be cleared of sins and he will cast off his ghosthood. Commanded thus by Parvati, Tumbaru, the lord of Gandharvas, was much delighted and thought within himself how fortunate he was. The powerful Tumbaru, the singer of the excellent songs of praise of Shiva, forcefully caught hold of the terrible pisacha by means of nooses. There was much talk and discussion among the people of all the worlds. O, Tumbaru has gone to the Vindhya mountain at the suggestion of goddess, to narrate the story of Shiva Purana to redeem the pisacha. The divine sages too hastened to the place for listening to the same. The wonderful congregation of those who assembled there, reverently eager to listen to Shiva Purana, was very auspicious. On hearing the Shiva Purana consisting of 7 comptiyams with great reverence, all the listeners deemed themselves highly blessed. The pisacha too, on hearing the holy Shiva Purana, cast off all his sins and discarded his ghostly body. He assumed the divine form of the three-eyed moon-crested god, Shiva, white in complexion, clad in white cloth, with body illuminated and embellished by all ornaments. Benduga in his divine form ascended the aerial chariot with great pleasure. High up in the sky, with his wife at his side, he shone brilliantly. Singing the pleasing attributes of Shiva, he hastened to Shiva's region accompanied by Tumbaru and his own wife. Benduga was welcomed by Shiva and Parvati and was lovingly made their attendant. His wife became the chaperone of Girija. He who listens to this account with devotion and recites this piously shall enjoy immense pleasures and obtain liberation. Rules for listening to Shiva Purana. O sage Saunaka, I shall tell you the rules for listening to Shiva Purana so that the entire fruit may be derived by their observance. Fruits and flowers should be profusely used. Never shall anyone show demeaning disrespect towards a Purana scholar, the speech from whose mouth is no less than the divine Kaukamadhenu for all persons. The intelligent discourser shall start the narration of the story of Shiva Purana at sunrise and continue it for 2.5 praharas, 2.5 x 3 to 7.5 hrs, earnestly. In order to ward off obstacles to the discourse, Gananathas should be worshipped. The Lord of the Sotri Shiva and the book, Shiva Purana, too must be worshipped with piety. He may drink only milk or ghee throughout and listen to the story with pleasure. He may live on fruit diet or take a single meal or even eschew that and proceed with the listening rite. The diet part is according to convenience and comfort, but the listening shall be strictly maintained. The days of discourse on Shiva Purana must be considered very excellent, even on a par with millions of sacrifices. Those who give carpets, deer skins, cloth, elevated couches and planks to keep the volume of Purana on, attain heaven, enjoy all desirable pleasures, stay in Brahma's region for the duration of a kalpa and finally attain Shiva's region. A great festive must be celebrated with vocal and instrumental music and performance of dances. The story of Shiva Purana must be listened to with careful attention. The recipient must be intelligent, pure in mind, delighted at the heart and a follower of conventions. Casting off worries of worldly affairs and those of wealth, house, and sons, if any one of pure mind concentrates his attention on the discourse, he will secure the excellent fruit. The recipients who are endowed with faith and piety, do not eagerly pursue other activities and are unruffled, pure, and restrained in speech derive great merit. Base men of impious nature who listen to this holy story do not have any special merit derived out of it. They will have misery in every birth. Those who do not honor this Purana with presents according to their capacity are fools. Even if they listen to the story, they will not be sanctified. They will become indigent. The Shiva Purana holds the mark of distinction among all Puranas. It is highly pleasing to Shiva. It wards off the ailment of worldly existence. In order to suppress the defects of deficiency and excess, he shall either read or listen with devotion to the 1,000 names of Shiva. Undoubtedly, thus, everything shall be fruitful and the fruit too shall be excellent, since there is no greater thing in the 3 worlds than this. I seek refuge in Shiva the Great, of infinite thick-set bliss, Shiva whose form is unaffected by all the 3 gunas, Shiva who manifests himself within and without this world, within and without the mind, Shiva whose form is variously evolved by mental ideas and verbal expressions. I meditate on Shiva, the Lord of Ambika, Parvati, auspicious from the beginning to the end, having no parallel, the noble Lord, the unaging and undying, the Lord of Atmans, the 5-faced and the dispeller of the 5 powerful sins. Vyasa said sages of edified souls, engaged in truthful rites, powerful and blessed, performed a great sacrifice at the confluence of Ganga and Kalindi, Yamuna, in the most sacred city of Prayag, a great holy center, the path that leads to Brahmaloka. On hearing that a sacrifice was being performed there, the disciple of Vyasa, the great sage Sutta, an excellent schooler in the Puranas, arrived there to see the sages. The sages were delighted on seeing him and received him with due hospitality and adoration. The due adoration being completed, the noble sages, being highly pleased, addressed him in all humility with their palms joined in reverence. Now, O Sutta of good mentality, we have only one point to be clarified. If thou dost desire to bless us, please explain the same, though it be the secret of secrets. At the advent of the terrible age of Kali, men have become devoid of merits. They are engaged in evil ways of life. They have turned their faces from truthful avocations. They are engaged in calumniating others. They covet other men's wealth. Their attention is diverted to other men's wives. Injuring others has become their chief aim. They view the physical body as the soul. Deluded as they are atheists of mere brutish sense. They hate their parents, their wives are goddesses unto them, they are slaves to lust. Brahmins are in the clutches of greed, they sell Vedas for livelihood, they acquire learning as a means of earning money, they are deluded by their false pride. They have forsaken the duties of their own castes, they have almost become swindlers of others, they do not offer Sandhya prayers thrice a day, they are deprived of Vedic enlightenment. They are ruthless, they make much of their little knowledge, they have discarded many of their rights and good conduct of life, they have taken to agriculture as their profession, cruelty has become second nature to them, their ideas have become dirty and defiled. They have eschewed the practice of miraculous weapons, they never care to protect cows and Brahmins, they no longer consider it their duty to protect those who seek refuge in them, they indulge in brutish sexual dalliance with their damsels. The good virtue of protecting their subjects they have thrown overboard, they strictly adhere to sensual enjoyment, they are wicked annihilators of their own people, they rejoice in the harassment of all living beings. Vaishyas too no longer perform holy rites, they have cast off their traditional virtue, they have taken to crooked ways to earn more and more, they are now notorious for their malpractices with the weighing balance. They take delight in being the paramours of beautiful women, squalid and filthy in their ideas and deluded by cupidity they have lost clear thinking, they have abandoned their zeal for purta and other holy rites such as digging wells, tanks, planting trees, and parks. In their eagerness to appropriate a Brahmanical splendor they frequently perform penances. They cause infantile and premature deaths by their chanting of mantras. They worship the salagrama stone and other things, they evince some interest in homas too, but in their thoughts and actions they are crooked and antagonistic, they calumniate the Brahmins. Rich people indulge in misdeeds, learned people take perpetual delight in disputations, those who conduct discourses in holy narratives and expound virtuous rites of worship, themselves abandon virtuous practice of the same. As for sons, they are invariably wicked without any filial affection, they take lessons in ignorant activities and succumb to various ailments. O Sutta, how can these deluded people who have abandoned their traditional virtues get salvation here and hereafter? There is nothing in the three world that is not known to thee, of the past, present and the future. Hence our minds are always agitated. Indeed there is no virtue equal to helping others. Since thou art conversant with the essentials of all tenets, please tell us the easiest remedy for the immediate destruction of the sins of these people. Vyasa said on hearing these words of the sages of sanctified souls, Sutta thought of Shiva and told them thus. O saintly men, the question that you put me is very pertinent. Prompted by my love towards you all I shall, remembering my preceptor, the benefactor of the three worlds, tell you everything. All of you listen attentively. The entire essence of Vedanta is contained in the excellent Shiva Purana. It dispels all sins. It affords the attainment of the highest truth, Brahma, hereafter. By the single-minded study of that most excellent Shiva Purana, excellent Brahmins will attain salvation. It is only as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world, that, the sin of slaying a Brahmin, and other sins display themselves. It is only as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world, that the evil portents of Kali fearlessly roam about. It is only as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world that different sacred texts clash together in disputation. It is difficult even to great men to comprehend Shiva's features as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. The cruel attendants of Yama roam about fearlessly as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All other Puranas roar loudly on the earth as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the holy centers enter into mutual wrangles and disputes on the earth as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the mantras rejoice in mutual disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the sectors of pilgrimage engage themselves in mutual disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the altars and pedestals engage themselves in mutual disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the gifts engage themselves in disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All those gods engage themselves in mutual disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. All the philosophical tenets engage themselves in mutual disputes as long as the Shiva Purana has not risen high in the world. O foremost among Brahmanical sages, I cannot adequately describe the fruit accruing from reciting and listening to the Shiva Purana. Even then, O sinless ones, I shall succinctly describe its greatness as narrated to me by Vyasa. Please listen attentively. He who reads a single stanza or even half of it piously becomes free from sin instantaneously. He who reads every day as much of Shiva Purana as he can with devotion and alertness is called a living liberated soul. He who bows near the Shiva Purana derives undoubtedly the fruit of adoration of all the gods. Please listen to the meritorious benefits that accrues to the man who copies Shiva Purana and gives the manuscript to the devotees of Shiva. He will have that benefit, very difficult to attain in the world, as that of the study of sastras, sacred lore, and of commenting on the Vedas. He who observes fast on the Chaturdashi, 14th day in the lunar fortnight, and conducts discourses and comments on the Shiva Purana in the assembly of the devotees of Shiva is the most excellent of all. He shall derive the benefit of the repetition of Gayatri syllable by syllable. He will enjoy all worldly pleasures here and attain salvation thereafter. Indra and other devas wait eagerly for the directives of the man who chants day and night the verses of Shiva Purana. The sacred rites performed by the man who regularly reads or listens to the Shiva Purana are effective millions of times more than usual. The Shiva Purana is the best among the Puranas, extolling the great being that glows in Vedanta and the Vedas. Vyasa said on hearing the words of Sutta, the great sages said, "Please narrate the wonderful Purana that fully treats of the essence of Vedanta." Very delighted at the request of the sages, Sutta meditated on Shiva and spoke to them. Sutta said, contemplating on Shiva free from ailments, may yet all hear the Shiva Purana, the foremost among Puranas, that amplifies the essence of the Vedas. Where the trio, bhakti, piety, jnana, wisdom, and vairagya, non-attachment, has been proclaimed, and the object which is knowable only through Vedanta, has been particularly described. Sutta said, may yet all hear the Purana that imbibes the essence of the Vedas. Formerly, when many kalpas, eons, elapsed and this kalpa started with the process of creation, a great dispute arose among the sages of 6 clans who held divergent views as to which is great and which is not. They approached Brahma, the creator, to ask him about the imperishable. All of them with palms joined in reverence addressed him with words couched in humility, Thou art the creator of the entire universe, the cause of all causes. Who is that being older than all principles, the greatest of the great? Brahma said that from whom words recede, not approaching him even with the mind, that from whom this entire universe beginning with Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, and Indra, along with all elements and all sense organs, is evolved at first, he is the Lord Mahadeva, the Omniscient, the Lord of the universe. He can be realized by supreme devotion and not by other means. Rudra, Hari, Hara, and other lords of Devas are ever desirous of seeing him, moved by great devotion. Maheswara is to be heard, glorified and meditated upon. Hence listening is the first right. The intelligent scholar must listen to the oral explanation of the preceptor and then practice the other rites. Kirtana, glorifying, and Manana, deliberation. When all the means up to Manana are well exercised, Shiva Yoga, unification with Shiva, results gradually through Salokya etc. All the ailments of the body are nullified and supreme bliss is realized. Painful indeed is the process, but later on everything becomes auspicious from beginning to end. The sages said, O Holy One, what is Sravana? What is Manana? How is Kirtana performed? Please expound these precisely. Brahma said the mind is fond of reasoning deliberation. The ability of the mind to ponder and evaluate the corresponding efficacy of the worship, japa, the attributes of Isat, his form, his divine sports and multifarious names, is the result of the benignant glance of Isvara. Hence this steady continuance in the act of deliberation is the most important of all the means. By Kirtana, glorification, is meant the clear expression of Shiva's exploits, attributes, forms, sports, names etc. in good taste by reciting traditional lore, singing songs of praise even in mother tongue. It is the middle one of the 3 means. O wise men, the means of Sravana famous in the world is the listening to the words concerning Shiva, in whatever manner, howsoever and wherever they are produced with the same steady attention as in the sporting dalliance of women. Sravana, listening, is effected when on associates with good men. Then the Kirtana of Pasupati becomes steady. In the end is the Manana which is the most excellent. All these take place as a result of benevolent surveillance of Lord Shiva. Formerly, I too confounded by other means performed a great penance on the mountain Mandara. At the bidding of Shiva, the divine attendant Nandikesvara arrived there. That sympathetic lord of Ganas, witness of all, lovingly told me about the excellent means of salvation. Visravana, Kirtana, and Manana all in conformity with Vedic ideals. Hence, O holy sage, as advised by Shiva, these are the 3 means of salvation. Please practice them. He repeatedly advised Ivyasa thus. Isvara said, Dear children, I am delighted at your worship on this holy day. Henceforth, this day will be famous as Shivratri, the holiest of holy days, pleasing to me. He who performs the worship of my phallic emblem and embodied image on this day will be competent to perform the task of creation and maintenance etc. of the universe. The devotee shall observe fast on Shivratri, both during the day and the night. He shall perfectly restrain his sense organs. By the worship on Shivratri day the devotee attains that fruit which usually accrues to one who continuously worships me for a year. Since I manifested myself in the form of phallic emblem in the field of battle, this place will be known as Lingasthan. O sons, this column without root or top will henceforth be diminutive in size for the sake of the vision and worship of the world. The phallic emblem confers enjoyment. It is the only means of worldly enjoyment and salvation. Viewed, touched, or meditated upon, it wards off all future births of the living beings. Since the phallic emblem rose high resembling a mountain of fire, this shall be famous as Ruddy, Aruna, mountain. I have two forms, the manifest and the unmanifest. No one else has these two forms. Hence all else are non-isvaras. Or the devotee need perform the rites from water offering to food offering alone duly. Or the devotee shall daily perform, as he can, ablution, abhisheka, food offering, naivedya, and obeisance, namaskara, and propitiation, tarpana, all these in order. It will accord him the region of Shiva. Repetition of this for 5 crores of times will render a person equal to Sadashiva. By repeating it 1, 2, 3, or 4 crores of times, the devotee shall attain the region of Brahma and others. A Brahmin shall repeat the Gayatri 1008 times every day in the morning. He shall attain Shiva's region gradually. He shall repeat Vedic verses and hymns with the observance of restraints. Whatever is given to a devotee of Shiva with sincere faith accords Shiva's region. Or the devotee can repeat the Pranava mantra 10,000 times every day. Repetition of Pranava mantra, 1,000 times at dawn and at dusk is known to be according to Shiva's region. At the time of the repeated utterance, japa, of the mantra, ending with M purifies the mind. If the mantra consists of only one syllable it shall first be repeated 1 crore times and thereafter 1,000 times with great devotion. Doing thus according to one's capacity one shall gradually attain Shiva's region. It is the duty of everyone to repeat a mantra pleasing to him every day till his death. If a man repeats 1,000 times he shall get all his desires fulfilled at the bidding of Shiva. If he plants a flower garden for the sake of Shiva or even renders service by sweeping and cleaning Shiva's temple and precincts he shall attain Shiva's region. The devotee shall reside forever in Shiva's temple with great devotion. It yields worldly enjoyment and salvation to everyone sentient or insentient. Hence an intelligent man shall reside in a temple of Shiva till death. By the uplift in the caste and devotion, the fruit gains more efficacy. Anything done with a desire in view yields results immediately. Anything done with no specific desire in view yields the region of Shiva directly. The 2 middle yamas, 1 yama is equal to 3 hours, at night are called Nisitha. The worship of Shiva at that time accords desired results. The sages said, O Sutta, foremost among excellent yogins, please tell us briefly about the various holy centers by resorting to which women and men shall attain the region of Shiva. Please tell us about the traditions of Shiva temples also. Sutta said, all of you listen faithfully to the account of all holy centers and their traditions. The earth, 50 crores of yojanas in extent, abounding in mountains and forests, supports the people at the bidding of Shiva. The Lord has himself raised up these temples and holy centers in different places for the liberation of the residents of these localities. These temples, whether self-risen or not, in view of their being accepted, as their frequent resort, by the sages and devas, are intended for the redemption of the people. In these holy centers and temples, ablutions, charitable gifts, japas etc. must be regularly performed. Otherwise men are sure to be affected by ailments, penury, dumbness etc. If a man dies anywhere in the Bharatvars, he shall be reborn again as a man if he has resided in a holy center where there is a self-risen phallic emblem of Shiva. When a man stays in a holy center, he must not commit even the smallest sin. Somehow men must strive to find a residence in a holy center. On the shores of the ocean, in the confluence of hundreds of rivers, there are many such holy centers and temples. The holy river Sarasvati is said to have 60 mouths or holy centers on its banks. Hence an intelligent man must stay on its banks. He shall attain Brahma's region gradually. The river Ganga, flowing from the Himalaya mountains, is very holy with its 100 mouths. There are many holy centers on its banks, such as Kasi etc. Its banks are highly sacred in the month of Margasirsa, or when Brihaspati, Jupiter, is in the zodiac Capricornus. The river Sunabhadra of 10 mouths is holy and yields all cherished desires. By ablutions therein and observing fast, the devotee shall attain the region of the god Gainsa. The holy Narmada is a great river of 24 mouths. By a dip therein and residing on its banks, the devotee shall attain the region of Vishnu. The river Tamasa is of 12 mouths and Riva has 10 mouths. Godavari is very holy and it quells the sins of murdering a Brahmin or slaughtering a cow. It is said to have 21 mouths and accords Rudraloka. Krishnavani is a sacred river destroying all sins. It is said to have 18 mouths and it accords Vishnuyaloka. Tungabhadra has 10 mouths and it accords Brahmaloka. The holy Suvarnamukari is said to have 9 mouths. Those who fall from Brahmaloka are born there. By residing on the banks of the auspicious rivers Saraswati, Pampa, Kanya, and Svatanadi, one shall attain Indraloka. The great river Kaveri, flowing from the mountain Sahaya, is very holy and is said to have 27 mouths. It accords all cherished desires. Its banks are the bestowers of heaven and the regions of Brahma and Vishnu. The devotees of Shiva are the bestowers of Shivaloka and accord cherished desires. When the Jupiter and the Sun are in the zodiac of Mesa, the devotee shall take the holy bath in Namasa and Bhadra. Worship etc. thereafter accords Brahmaloka. When the Sun is in Karkataka or Simha, one shall take bath in the Sindhu, Indus. On that occasion the drinking of the sacred water of Kedara and ablution therein accords perfect knowledge. Shiva himself has mentioned before that the bath in Godavari in the month of Simha, when Jupiter is also in the zodiac of Simha, accords Shiva region. When Jupiter and the Sun are in the zodiac of Kanya, ablution shall be performed in the rivers Yamuna and Suna, the fruit of which is great enjoyment in the worlds of Dharma and Dantan, Gainsa. When the Sun and the Jupiter are in Tula, the devotee shall taketh in the Kaveri the fruit whereof is the attainment of all cherished desires as sated by Vishnu himself. The devotee who takes bath in the river Narmada in the month of Vrasika, when the Jupiter is in the zodiac of Vrasika, attains Vishnu Loka. Brahma has stated that the bath in the Suvarnamukari when the Sun and the Jupiter are in the zodiac of Dhanus accords Shivaloka. The devotee shall take bath in the Janvi, Ganges, in the month of Margasirsa when Jupiter is in the zodiac of Capricornus. After enjoying pleasures in the regions of Brahma and Vishnu, he will gain perfect knowledge in the end. In the month of Magha when the sun is in the zodiac of Kumbh, Sraddha, offerings of Pinda and water libations with gingali seeds raise the crores of manes on both the sides, paternal and maternal, of the family. When the sun and the Jupiter are in the zodiac of Meena, ablution shall be performed in Krishnavani. The ceremonial ablutions taken in the different sacred waters in the respective months accord the region of Indra. An intelligent man shall resort to Ganga or the Kaveri river. Certainly his sin will be quelled thereby. There are many holy centers yielding Rudraloka. The rivers Tamraparni and Vejavati accord Brahmaloka. There are holy centers on their banks bestowing heaven on the worshipper. In between these rivers there are meritorious holy centers. Intelligent men residing there will reap the respective fruits thereof. Only by good conduct, good predilections, and good concepts as well as by being sympathetic can the devotee derive the benefit, not otherwise. Meritorious actions performed in a holy center flourish in many ways. Sinful acts committed in a holy center, though slight, become manifold. If the sin committed in a holy center is only for livelihood, the merit will destroy that sin. Merit accords prosperity and quells physical, verbal, and mental sins. O Brahmins, the mental sin is adamantine in sticking to the sinner and it continues for many kalpas. The mental sin can be wiped off only by meditation and not otherwise. The verbal sin is wiped off by japas and the physical sin by forcefully causing the emaciation of the body. Sins committed by means of wealth can be wiped off by making charitable gifts and not otherwise, though crores of kalpas, eons, may elapse. In some places the increasing sin destroys the merit. Both merit and demerit have three aspects: the seed stage, flourishing stage, and the enjoyment stage. If they are in the seed stage they can be quelled by perfect knowledge. If they are in the flourishing stage they can be quelled in the manner described before. If they are in the enjoyment stage they get destroyed only by enjoying and experiencing their fruits and not otherwise, though one might have performed crores of meritorious deeds. If the seed or the flourishing seedlings are destroyed, what remains must be experienced and wiped off. If one regularly performs worship of gods, makes gifts to Brahmins and performs sufficient penance, the enjoyment becomes bearable. Hence those who wish for happiness must refrain from committing sins. Chapter 13, Description of Good Conduct. The sages said, kindly tell us the mode of good conduct whereby the sensible man quickly attains higher worlds. Please tell us about virtue and evil that cause attainment of heaven or hell. Sutta said, a Brahmin endowed with strict adherence to good conduct is perfectly wise. A Brahmin learned in Vedas and of good conduct is called a Vipra. A Brahmin endowed with only one of these two is a mere Dvija. A Brahmin following some of the prescribed rules of conduct and with a smattering of the Vedas is a Kshatriya Brahmin, at best a royal servant. Very careless in following the rules of conduct, the Brahmin is really a Vaishya Brahmin. One engaged in agriculture and trading activities is also likewise. A Brahmin ploughing the field himself is a Sudra Brahmin. One of envious and spiteful temperament is a degraded Dvija. A Kshatriyas who rules over a kingdom is a king, others are mere Kshatriyas. A merchant dealing in grains etc. is a Vaishya and others of his caste are mere Vaniks. A person rendering service to Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas is called a Sudra. A working agriculturist is a Vrasala and the others are Dasyas. It is the duty of every one of the four castes to get up early in the morning and sit facing the east and meditate on gods. He shall then think about the various acts of virtue, of matters regarding monetary dealings, the problems connected with them, the sources of income and the items of expenditure. The direction in which one casts one's first glance on waking up indicates the good or bad that is likely to attend one on that day. The 8 effects in order are longevity, hatred, death, sin, fortune, sickness, nourishment, and strength. The last yama, 3 hours, of the night is called usha, and the latter half of it is sandhi, period of conjunction. A Brahmin shall get up at that hour and answer the calls of nature. It must be in a place far off from the house. It must be a covered place. He shall sit facing the north. If it is not possible due to any obstacle, he can sit facing other directions. He must never sit in front of water, fire, a Brahmin, or the idol of any god. He must screen the penis with the left hand and the mouth with the right. After evacuating the bowels, the feces should not be looked at. Water drawn out in a vessel should be used for cleaning, that is, no one should sit inside the tank or river water for cleaning purpose. Anyway, no one shall enter the holy tanks and rivers dedicated to deities, manes, etc., and frequentedly the sages. The rectum must be cleaned with mud 7, 5, or 3 times. The penis must be cleaned with mud as large as a cucumber fruit, and the quantity of mud for the purification of the rectum shall be prasriti, half a handful. After the purification of the excretory organs, hands and feet must be washed, and gargling shall be done for 8 times. For gargling, the water can be taken in any vessel or a wooden cup, but water shall be spit outside, not in the river or tank. Washing of the teeth with any leaf or twig must be without using the index finger and outside the water. After making obeisance to the gods of water, the twice-born shall perform the ablution with mantras. Sick or weak persons shall take bath up to the neck or hips. Sprinkling water up to the knees, he shall perform the mantra snana. He shall propitiate deities etc. sensibly with the water from the holy tank or river. A washed dry cloth should be taken and worn in the lower garment in a special way. In all sacred rites the upper cloth should also be used. While taking bath in the holy river or tank, the cloth worn shall not be rinsed or beaten. The sensible man shall take it to a separate tank or well, or to the house itself, and beat it on a rock or on a plank to the gratification of the manes, O Brahmins. The Tripundraka shall be drawn on the forehead with the Jabalaka mantra. If anyone enters water otherwise, he will surely go to hell. The order for mantra snana is as follows: feet, head, chest, feet, and chest, feet, head, or sprinkling the water thrice. It is enough if one performs mantra snana when one is slightly indisposed, or when there is danger from the king, or when there is civil commotion, or when there is no other way, or when one is about to undertake a journey. He shall drink by way of achamana, reciting the mantras from Surya Nuvaka in the morning or from Agni Nuvaka in the evening, and perform the ceremonial sprinkling in the middle. O Brahmins, at the end of the japa of Gayatri mantra, arghya shall be offered thrice to the sun towards east, and once also thereafter. The offering of arghya in the morning is by lifting both the hands high up, that in the midday by letting off the water through the fingers, and that in the evening by letting the water over the ground facing the west. In the midday the sun is to be viewed through the fingers, reciting the mantra prescribed for that. The circumambulation of oneself is performed, in the prescribed manner, and the pure achamana, without mantras, is performed. Sandhya prayer performed before the prescribed time is ineffective. Hence Sandhya shall be performed at the prescribed time. The expiatory rite for the omission of Sandhya prayer for a day is the repetition of Gayatri 100 times more than the usual number of times for 10 days. If the omission is for 10 days or more, Gayatri must be repeated for 100,000 times as atonement. If one omits Sandhya for a month, one has to be reinvested with the sacred thread. For the sake of prosperity, deities shall be propitiated such as Isa, Gauri, Guha, Vishnu, Brahma, Chandra, the moon, and Yama. Thereafter the entire rite shall be dedicated to the Supreme Brahman and pure Achamana shall be performed. Towards the rite of the holy water, in a splendid prayer hall, temple, or a common matha, or in a stipulated place in one's own house, one shall sit firmly with the mind in concentration and perform the Gayatri Japa after due obeisance to all gods. He shall not omit the practice of the Pranava mantra. While practicing the Pranava, he shall realize fully the identity of Jiva, the individual soul, with the Supreme Brahman. The full implication of the Gayatri must be borne in the mind when the japa is performed. We pray to Brahma, the creator of the three worlds, to Achyuta the sustainer and Rudra the annihilator. We meditate on the self-luminary that prompts us in the activities of virtue and wisdom, bestowing enjoyment and salvation, the self-luminary that is the driving force behind the sense organs, mind, intellect, and acts of volition. The devotee who dwells thus on the meaning constantly attains the Brahman. Or if competent to dwell on the meaning, let him at least continue the recitation of the mere mantra to keep his Brahmanhood intact. An excellent Brahmin must repeat the mantra 1,000 times in the morning every day. Others shall repeat as many times as they can. In the midday Gayatri shall be repeated 100 times, in the evening at least 20 times, along with a set of 8 as the tuft, that is 8 times more than stipulated. He shall meditate of Vidhi Isa, Brahma, Vishnu, Isa, Jivatman, and Paramesvara stationed in the 12 esoteric center of the body from Muladhara, basic support, to the Brahmarandra, the mystical aperture at the crown on the head, as identical with Brahman with the conception of Soham, I am he, and continue the japa. He shall then meditate on them as stationed outside the body as well. From Mahatattva, the cosmic principle, there are 1,000 extraneous bodies, each of which is to be passed by each mantra slowly, and the jiva must be unified with the Supreme. This is the principle on which the japa is based. This japa for the sake of the extraneous bodies is for 2,000 times with a set of 8 as the tuft, that is 8 times more than stipulated. This is the tradition regarding the japas. Repetition for 1,000 times accords Brahmahood, and that for 100 times accords the region of Indra. Repetition for less number of times may guard the soul to a certain extent and bring about rebirth in the family for a Brahmin. After the worship of the sun, the Brahmin shall practice thus every day. A Brahmin who has completed 1,200,000 repetitions becomes a full-fledged Brahmin. A Brahmin who has not completed at least 100,000 repetitions of Gayatri is not authorized in Vedic rites. Till he completes his 70th year he shall follow these rules. Afterwards he can take to renunciation. After renunciation he shall repeat the pranava 12,000 times in the morning every day. Omissions and deficiencies of one day must be made good the next day. If the omission is continued for a month, the atonement is repetition for 150,000 times. If the omission extends beyond this, he shall take the order of sannyasa afresh. Then only can the defect be fully effaced. Otherwise he is sure to fall into Raurava, the terrible hell. Only the person who has a cherished desire shall endeavor for virtue and wealth and not others. A Brahmin shall seek salvation and practices the ways of realizing Brahman forever.